When kids just won't listen, parents often feel stuck between two choices: to give in or get angry. It's exhausting. We give you the top techniques directly from the experts, helping you on your path to a more peaceful, respectful, and joyful life with your kids. Today on the show, I'll be talking to a distinguished gentleman, finally, who recently received the 2019 Spotlight Award. This is an award local to Charleston that recognizes and honors servant leaders who give their time, energy, and money to help others and to make a positive impact in the local community. Rezsaun Lewis has done that in a lot of ways. Most recently with his work as the executive director of the Lowcountry Youth Services Program. He leads the Distinguished Gentlemen's Club. This is a mentoring program for boys from 3rd grade through 12th grade, which is all about helping them to become confident, positive contributors to their worlds, to the neighborhoods around them, all over. The club helps steer these young gentlemen away from discipline problems, school attendance issues, potential drug use, or whatever other trouble is lurking. Our guest, Mr. Rezsaun Lewis, is also a teacher and a motivational speaker. He hosts a video podcast called Real Talk with Rezsaun with weekly live episodes. Today, Rezsaun shares his experience as a mentor for young men, shares with us about setting personal goals with them, and of course, all of that hinges on getting them to listen in the first place. So we're going to figure out how he does that. And here's our conversation with Rezsaun Lewis. All right, welcome to the show. Today we have Rezsaun Lewis here. Rezsaun, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Rezsaun, what is it that you love most about working with kids?
The thing I love most about working with kids is the fact that kids are still so malleable. They're very impressionable and they're very moldable. They're often looking for something to hold on to grasp onto, and when we as adults can do that, we actually have an opportunity to change and shape the future through those children. Kids are our future leaders. They're our future mayors, lawyers, judges, police officers, firemen, military people. Like they are literally our future. And the more we can impact them, the better off our future will be. I find that, when we neglect to work with our children for whatever reason, we are neglecting our own future and really writing our own ticket to failure as a world. So yeah, that's the thing that I love the most about working with children.
The Distinguished Gentlemen's Club, can you tell us, kind of paint a picture for us of what that environment looks like?
Distinguished Gentlemen's Club is a mentoring program that was built through the Lowcountry Youth Services Youth Development Organization, of which I am the executive director. Our organization was started in about 2010 by Officer Ricardo Perry. And originally the idea behind the program was that he was an SRO, which is a student resource officer at schools, as a police officer. He saw these young men who didn't have any positive interactions with adults. And those kids that were not having that positive interaction with adults were getting in trouble all the time. So he said, well, what can I do to impact these young men, make sure that they have the support and guidance that they need? So he created the organization, the Distinguished Gentlemen's Club. He started meeting with the kids, talking to them about making better choices and things of that nature. That was in 2010. We became a nonprofit. And then here we are in 2019, where we've gone from being just a mentoring organization that works with young men at one school to being an organization that works in the Tri-County area with about, I think we have 60 young men on roster and about 25 mentors. Our organization is 100% volunteer. And what we focus on with the young men is life skills, etiquette training, as well as developing the skills that they need for tomorrow. We talk about soft skills. We talk about just common manners and decency, ways of treating people, but also servant leadership. We're very big on having the young men out in the community, committing community service monthly. So using that as our general overview, that's what the Distinguished Gentlemen's Club is in a nutshell.
So you're finding kids from multiple different areas. How are you selecting them?
We're to the point now as an organization where we are pretty much all kids all come to us by referral. People hear about our organization, they hear about the work that we do, and parents say, "Hey, I want my child involved in your organization." We actually have one open enrollment up for the year, which happens in August, where we bring in new members. And from the time the kids come to us in August, if they submit an application after August, then they have to wait until the following August where we call all the people, we reach out to all the people who have submitted applications, and we let them know, hey, this is our open enrollment date. You need to be here with your child. There'll be an interview. There's an interview part of it. There's an informational part of it. And then, there's a commitment fee, which is $100 for the year in which the young men can join our organization. But yeah, most of our people, we don't have to recruit for kids. We always have a long list of kids waiting to get into the organization. And that's something that keeps us going in that way, because we realize that year after year, in addition to those new people that come on board, we also have the kids that come back every year. So that's what keeps our organization going.
And where are you meeting? Are all the people coming together at one time?
The organization operates in a small group mentorship model. It's not a one-to-one mentorship model where, we say, okay, Johnny, we're going to match you up with Mr. Billy, and that's who you work with. No. In our organization, based on the age group, all of our young men are grouped based on age groups. So each age group has a certain number of mentors that are assigned to their age group. So from third to fifth grade, they have the junior group. The sixth to eighth is the immersion group, and then the high group is ninth and 12th grade. And each of those, like I said, groups have a set of mentors, I believe like 6 to 8 mentors that are assigned to that group. And those young men work with the mentors as a part of the programming that we have. So second Saturday, where we meet is our home base, which we have a relationship with Berkeley County School District, which allows us to use Fishburne Education Center, which is really the Lowcountry Youth Services home base, where we have most of our interactions when it comes to our club meetings every second Saturday. But we meet there. That's where we talk about life skills, etiquette training, and we go through the different programming and things that we go through with our young men. But yes, Fishburne Education Center and Berkeley County School District is where we meet.
You said you have an executive role there. Are you personally mentoring kids, and what ages are you working with?
All right, so yes, I am the executive director. I was the program director of the Distinguished Gentlemen's Club in Somerville, which we had the branch we had in Somerville before we unified all of them. And then I became the director of programs for all of DGC in 2017. And as of July 1st, 2019, I became the executive director of the entire nonprofit. But even in that, I still had a role as a mentor. I still work with young men. When I first came to the organization in 2016, I did take on mentees on my own. And it's kids that I've come into contact with throughout time. It's like, okay, I want to work with this kid more than the program really requires. I have 2 specifically that I work with. One is a young man by the name of Laura Stinson. He's my mentee. He's actually a kid who's adopted from the country of Haiti by 2 Caucasian parents, and they reached out to our organization, and because they wanted some extra help to see how to relate more culturally to him, and to see what we can do to help him to adjust more to what's going on here. And I can tell you that through working with him, I've been able to see such growth with him. I've been with Laura since I think 2016. And he's been an amazing young man. His family is like my family now. When something happens or we're taking a family trip, I normally try to call and see if Laura can go with us, just because that's the place that he has in my heart. In addition to that, when I was teaching, he actually went to my school. So I would work with him every day as a teacher, as well as when I went home, I would also work with him as his mentor. So that's a relationship that I really value. He's like one of my own, though I definitely know the barriers and understand that that's not my child, which is always one of the weird balances of being a mentor. But Because of my relationship with his parents, it really makes it all worthwhile seeing him. But he's now in sixth grade, and I also have another mentee, which again is another young man that I just saw through the course of being a mentor at the organization, by the name of Sean French, and another amazing young man. He's actually a high school junior, and I work with him when I go speak. I went and spoke at a youth conference in Columbia, and he rolled with me and he helped me out by taking pictures and things of that nature. And we got to have a lot of talks about what's going on in his life. So mentorship is, again, not only something that I do as a leader of the organization, but it's also something that applies back to my everyday life.
I'm assuming that the mentors are checking in with each other to, help each other out on working with the kids.
Yeah.
So what is the specific skill set that you have that the other mentors are coming to you for advice around?
Great question. Okay, so when we talk about the kids, all right, when you talk about kids, we go back to the fact that kids are kids. A lot of times kids are experiencing more on a day-to-day basis. And this is something I thought both as a teacher and as a mentor. Kids are experiencing more and more on a day-to-day basis than we could ever imagine as adults. These kids are growing up in an age where affirmation is so important to them. They need, we live in an age of social media where they need these likes. Kids are doing all these crazy things to get liked on Facebook. They want all their friends to follow their Instagram page, or they want all their friends to subscribe to their YouTube channel. And all these people are looking for affirmation in all these ways. Well, in addition to that, they're also dealing with the home stuff. There's I believe, when you talk about child abuse, you talk about abuse at home, you talk about a lack of resources that are available. Some kids who we deal with, they have inconsistent. They're inconsistent because their parents are also inconsistent. We have young men who want to be a part of our organization, but their parents can't get them to our meetings consistently. So, you have things like that. There's also emotional issues that kids deal with on a day-to-day basis that relate to when you talk about behavior, it's really that they have emotions, and especially as little boys, that they don't know how to communicate effectively. They don't know how to express themselves. So we try to teach them, hey, these are ways that you can express yourself so that you don't feel overwhelmed and feel overburdened by the things that you feel on a day-to-day basis. We talk to them about, relationships, and hey, maybe this is the way you should talk to a young lady if you want to date her. Maybe, if you're in a relationship, you should look at them a different way. So our mentors are constantly trying to figure out, how do we reach kids that are growing up in a time that we didn't grow up in? How do we relate to kids that are growing up in circumstances that we didn't grow up in? That's a major concern for us as mentors. It's how do we bridge that gap? A lot of times we talk about this generation as though we had no role in what it is. And we do. We as adults have a massive amount of responsibility to claim for what is happening with the kids of today. We built the world that we live in. And the kids are, they're dealing with the effects of the world that we built, and they don't understand a lot of times. They don't trust us a lot of times. That's another thing, is that it's so hard to get a kid to trust you because of the adults that have let them down before. And that's a bridge that we as adults built. I'm sorry, that's a gap that we as adults build in these children when we let them down consistently. Whether it be, maybe you had a coach that coached you when you were 8 years old, and then, after that season, you never saw that coach again. Maybe it's your dad, who, your dad, was in your life, or maybe your dad is in your life, but he's always busy at work. So he never gets to talk to you. That child has a hole that needs to be filled. And so as we as mentors have to bring in every individual kid, realize what's going on and diagnose that problem so that we can address the issue real time. Or realize that if we don't, we may lose a kid to the street, which is a much larger issue. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure. So when you have a kid who's not listening, perhaps when you're out on one of your work projects, and you feel like the problem is trust, that the trust is too low between the boy and the mentor.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
So we're very intentional about expectations. We set a standard. We have a standard as an organization, and we let every young man know, and this is something that we tell them in the intake. Everything's not for everybody, right? If you want to come here, I don't care if you are a straight A student or you've got an F on every test you've ever taken in your life. The one thing we expect from you is that you are going to represent us well. And we're not going to ask you to do a whole lot of things that are hard to do when it comes to representing us well. And we're also going to promise you that if you represent us well, there's nothing that you can do that we can't overcome. We can work together on anything. So we've had situations with young men where, we were out somewhere, and it's only been like once or twice, where, we've been somewhere and we've had an issue with a young man who wasn't, representing us well. And first we have to talk. Hey, we're out here, what we came to do, what the mission is. Do you have an issue with what the mission is? Can you not do it? Oh yeah, I can do it. Cool. So let's go back. Let's do the job that we came here to do so that we can get our volunteer hours and we can serve the community, because that's what this is all about, serving the community. And then we send them back and let them roll. If nothing else happens, then we're good. Everything's fine. If that happens again, we have to bring the young man in and say, hey, we tried to work with you and make sure, to make sure that you can complete the project. Unfortunately, you aren't living up to the expectations, so we're going to send you home today. So we called mom and said, hey, mom, this young man, he's not living up to expectations. So we're going to send him home for the day, and he's not going to get credit for this. Now, that's important here, because along with our expectations, we also have things that are tied to our expectations. So we have fun things that we do as well, in addition to the, trainings and service projects. Like we take kids to, Frankie's Fun Park. We do paintball. We do, and at the end of the year, we do a retreat in which we take our young men out of town. We've taken them to Charlotte Hornets games. We've done all of these things. Well, you can't do that if you're not in good standing behaviorally. So everything ties back to the fact that we have those carrots out there. And the only thing that we're asking you, and the thing we always make sure they understand, is the only thing we're asking you to do is really be decent. Like, we're just asking you to be decent and follow, what everybody else is doing. And everybody else here is here for positive reasons. We all want to get something positive out of this. And if the issue that you have is that you don't trust the person that's here, then maybe we need to try it again with somebody else, and maybe it'll work better with somebody else here. But if there's a lack of trust with the person that we have there as a mentor, then we need to understand what the issue is. Let's talk about it. Did the person say something to you that made you feel like, did they trigger you some kind of way? Really talking to them, figuring that out. So that'll be a discussion that happens off site. We wouldn't do that on site because of the fact that then when we're in a community service project, like, we're there to complete the mission. We're there to do a specific job. But when we're talking, when I had my students, and that was the issue with one of my students, it was definitely, hey man, what is the issue? Let's pick in. Like, I was staying during if we had during like teacher planning time. There were several times where I've kept a student, from I say, hey, I'm gonna send the class to music because it's their special area time. All right, you guys are gonna go to music. I'm gonna hold on to little Johnny, and me and little Johnny are gonna talk about what the issue was that happened during the day that caused this outburst. What is causing this situation, so that we can move past it. Because I want little Johnny to understand that I respect his opinion. I want him to know that his thoughts are relevant to me. They are important to me. So that's really how I deal with it, and that's also how we teach our mentors to deal with it.
So it sounds like the setting the expectations is a really important part of the process.
Yes.
Are the kids at all involved with that? And how do you set expectations that aren't too low or too high? What's the process that you go through to make sure that the expectations are fair and that the kid's going to buy into it?
People use the term bad kids, right? They'll say, oh, those kids are bad. Well, when you tell a kid that he is bad or she is bad, that kid tends to believe you, right? So as a teacher, I made a point of it to never tell my kids that they were bad. I never told my students, neither do I tell my mentees that they are bad, because now my expectation of them is that they're going to do bad things. I've had students that have told me, hey, Mr. Lewis, I didn't take my medicine today, so I'm going to be bad. That was their expectation. And you know what I spit back at them? I say, no, you're going to be fine because you're a great kid. And even if that kid had some kind of issue with the medicine, not taking the medicine, in their mind, they still said, Mr. Lewis, you know, I tried my best to have a great day and I didn't do as well as I wanted to. But they still knew what the expectation was. They still knew from me, I expected them to be just as good as they were when they were on their medicine, or maybe better. Because I'm going to set a high expectation for every kid that I come in contact with. But I want to find out what they want to be. And if they say I'm here and I want to be better than I was yesterday, then I can work with that. I can work with that every day of the week. If a kid says, I'm not doing well and I don't care to get any better, then that's not a whole lot I can do for that kid. That's a really a horse water drink kind of thing. Like I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink.
So how long does it take when you have a new kid coming in? How long does it take to establish those expectations, figure out what his end result is, and start building enough trust that you feel like you can work well together?
It happens over time. It happens over time. And the cool thing about our organization, one of my favorite things about our organization, to be honest with you, is the fact that a lot of it's done by the other kids in the organization. We do not have a high turnover rate. A lot of the kids who start with us stay with us for a really long time, at least until they get to high school, and then they have like a million other things going on. But our elementary school kids, our group that started with us, my son, when he started with our organization, he was in third grade. He's in sixth grade now. So they've been with us. That group's been with us for they're going on the third year. And when new kids come in, if they do something that's not indicative of the things that we expect of the organization, one of the kids will say, "Hey, we don't do that." Like we don't, as adults, we have to say that. The kids will say, "That's not something we do." So the way we really set the expectation, well, when we do the intake, we definitely we meet with the parent. Like I said, we do the interview. We meet with the parent. We meet with the kid and find out what their expectations are for themselves. And then we don't use that as ammunition to say, "Hey, we don't think this kid's going to fit into our compass, into our group." No, we say, "Okay, this is where this kid starts. We just know how much work we have to do to get them to where they need to be." Some kids come in and they're good. They would have been good whether they came to us or not. But there are some kids who, just by seeing the other kids falling in line and doing the things that they're supposed to do, they're going to fall in line and do what they're supposed to do. And if they get out of line, one of the other kids are going to say, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that. You probably shouldn't be doing that. That's not something that we do." There was actually a situation. We took our group of young men to Myrtle Beach in 2018. We took them to Myrtle Beach. And we had taken another group of young men with our organization that came with us. We took them with us because of a partnership that we had with an organization outside of ours. So we took a few of their young men with us. We figured everything was fine. And while on the trip, one of the young men who came with us, who was not a part of our organization, actually stole a steak knife from Golden Corral, brought it back to the hotel. And then he got into an altercation, which we never have fights ever. But he got into an altercation with one of our young men, and he pulled out the steak knife on this young man. And before we could even get to the room, the other kids had already dealt with it. Not in a way physically, but "Hey, dude, what are you doing? Do you know who we are? Do you know who we are? What we represent? We can't be out here doing that." And that really, to me, is the biggest part of it all, is that we are molding a group of young leaders who are going to be the next generation, who's going to be able to say, "Hey, that's not how we do things as gentlemen." And there's no specific amount of time that we can say, that happens in. But I can tell you that over time, it happens consistently and repetitively. And it's reinforced by the young men in our organization. Yeah.
Right. So in some ways, you're saying that the kids are able to keep each other in check, or hold each other to high standards, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the job of having that trust and maintaining those expectations gets easier and easier as it goes on, because they're kind of getting integrated into the group.
Absolutely. And that's, and like I tell you, it happens year after year, man. Year after year, that we just see this continue to renew itself. We have a class that comes in every year. Every year we have a class that comes in, And every year, we set the standard for the young men as mentors, and then we allow the organization to do what it does. Because we believe that by setting that example for these young men, that we really give them the platform from which to lead. But we can't expect the young people to lead if we have to stand over them all the time and give them step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 of how to be a leader. A lot of leadership is giving you the chance to actually lead. So we let our young men do that in the organization, and we step in when we need to. We do give them, like I said, we give them training. We have specific classes and things that we do every month that allow them to grow and learn about leadership and about becoming better leaders and prepare themselves for their future. But it's not by telling them that you have to do this way. I think of mentorship like a toolbox, right? So if you were trying to build a house, it would be nice to have a bunch of things in your toolbox. Do you have to use everything in your toolbox? No, but it's good to know that it's there. So if you decide, I want to build this house without using a hammer, well, that's completely up to you. But I gave you a hammer, so you might want to use it. And that's really our model of mentorship. We don't tell kids, you need to dress this way. You have to speak this way. You have to do this. You have to do that. If no, hey, these are things that you can do that will make you more successful if you decide to do this. If you don't, that's completely up to you. But we're going to make sure we give you the tools that you need, whether it be preparing yourself for college, careers, or anything.
For parents who don't have a distinguished gentleman's club in their city, do you have any advice for how they can help the local youth just in their neighborhood, or any resources you would point them to?
Yeah, because if you think about it, before mentorship was a buzzword that everybody was trying to get into, people just cared about each other, right? Like if you had a kid in your neighborhood, you saw that kid, you drove up and down the street, you saw the kid throwing a football. At some point, one of the adults or somebody in that neighborhood would have gone outside and realized that kid is out there by themselves every day. Somebody's going to throw that football at that kid. Somebody's going to talk to that kid. Somebody's going to guide that kid. Someone's going to find a way to work with that kid in some way. If we just do that, these mentorship programs wouldn't really be that important. They wouldn't be that needed. Now, they provide a great peer leadership standpoint. But if we just decide that we are all going to take one kid that may not be our own and mentor them, that does a ton of good.
I hear a lot of families saying that their kids don't want to go outside and play because there aren't any other kids outside playing. Mm. But they themselves aren't outside playing with their kids.
Right.
So if every family on the block has that same mentality,
yes,
that they're waiting for everyone else to go outside for them to go outside.
Yes.
Somebody's got to make that first move.
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, why are we waiting for somebody else to go outside? Again, back to leadership, right? If we're going to be the leaders, then we have to be first. We have to be willing to be not only first, but alone. And the fact that it's our child, we no longer live in a world, right? And this is something I tell parents all the time. We no longer live in a world where we can be as a do as I say and not as I do kind of world. I can't tell my kids it's really important for you to read if they never see me reading. I can't tell my kids it's really important to treat people well if they never see me treat people well. Kids see us now, especially in the age of social media. You can't tell your kids, I don't want you doing drugs, and your child turns on Instagram and sees you smoking weed every day. But this is the world that we live in. We have a world where people are doing that, and what kids learn out of that is adults are liars. Adults are hypocrites, and I don't trust them. And when they don't trust us, they don't listen to us. And we can't guide them anywhere when they don't listen to us. And that's where we get into a lot of the issues that I find, back to your question about, problems that the mentors experience, is that kids have seen, this hypocritical behavior. You tell your child, I want you to go to school and pursue your education because your education is important. Well, Mom, you didn't graduate from high school. Not only did you not graduate from high school, I don't see you pursuing an education, so why should I? Why should it be so important to me if it wasn't important to you? We can no longer, we can't do that with our kids. Our kids they're Generation Z, I believe. I believe this is Generation Z. But they are the generation of why, though. They will ask you why quick, very quickly. They'll say, hey, why should I do this? Why should I do that? Why should I care? Why aren't you doing this?
Well, and aren't they built to do exactly that, to learn about their environments?
Absolutely.
So we can take offense at that, or we can look at where that question from the child is really coming from,
Right.
and what would have to change in order for, their world, their environment to add up, to make a little more sense.
Yep. I mean, just think about it. Just think about the residual effect, right? So you're a kid, and your mom says, "I want you to go to bed at 9 o'clock because you need to get a good night's rest so you can get up and go to school in the morning." But you know that your mom is up until like 1:30 in the morning on social media most days. So when you see that from your parent, right? When you see that from your parent, you're not listening to what that parent said. What you're reading is, it's really not that important that I sleep. It's not. And probably what's more important is whatever my parent is doing on social media. Like it's it's really important that we as adults understand that is the messages that we are sending to the kids. I can't tell my son don't smoke and I come home with a new pack of cigarettes every day. Like I just can't.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like the overall message I'm hearing from you is that kids need leadership.
Yeah.
And that comes from modeling.
Yes.
It comes from setting the expectations as early as possible
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship, and looking at how they're continually reinforced.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And walking the talk
Absolutely.
through our own actions, so that we're not telling them to do one thing and they're looking at us and saying, why doesn't this apply?
Right. And you also position yourself as the expert in your child's life in that way too. So if you let's talk about sex, right? So if your child comes to you and say you find out your child is watching pornography, right? Let's say you find out your child is watching pornography and you see your child doing that and you're like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Why are you doing that, Tommy? Right? Now you could be disgusted and say, I don't ever want to see you do that again. Or you could say, hey, Tommy, let's talk about why you wanted to watch that. Let's talk about what about that situation. One, how did you come across it? Two, what do you already know? And let's talk about it. Let's make this a teachable moment. You have now positioned yourself as the expert to your child. So when Tommy has another question, guess what Tommy's going to do? He's going to come to you. You are now the expert in your child's life, as opposed to your child saying, oh, I can't talk to my dad about that because he's going to freak out. So I'm going to find somebody else to talk to who's going to give him probably much worse information than I would have given him as a loving parent.
And that's the other foundational piece that I heard you talking about, was building trust. And a way of doing that is positioning yourself as the expert by being willing to have those conversations, right, and let them know where you've been, and also how you can help them get what they're really after.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was trying not to laugh when I was thinking about positioning oneself as an expert on pornography.
Oh, not that one. Yeah.
Why are you going to that site, man?
Yeah, like, dude. This is a rookie move. That'd be funny. That is funny.
Do you have any upcoming events or anything you want to plug?
So I'm actually a finalist for the Spotlight Awards. It's something I'm really, really proud of. It's actually an event that I hosted last year. It's an award ceremony that's actually dedicated to identifying and awarding people who do great work in the community. There are 18 finalists, and then there are 9 quote unquote winners. And each award is actually named after one of the Emmanuel 9. So that's a really big deal to me. One, because I hosted the awards. I hosted it last year, and I got to see those families there. In addition to the awards, there's a lot of stuff that people do surrounding the Emmanuel Nine, quote unquote. But this is one of the only events that's actually sanctioned and approved by the families of the Emmanuel Nine. And the survivors and the families of the Emmanuel Nine actually attend the event in support of the event. It's an amazing opportunity for me, and I just thank God that I've been chosen, selected as one of the finalists. I can tell you that every one of the people that have been identified are amazing people in the community. Just to be mentioned alongside their names is amazing. That's on November 16th at the Gilliard Auditorium, Gilliard Center downtown. I'm speaking at North Charleston High School on November 1st to their freshman class. On November 4th, I'm speaking at Moultrie Middle. I'm not exactly sure which group I'm speaking to. I'm not sure if it's the whole school or if it's just one grade level, but I know I'm speaking there on that day. And then January the 18th, 2020, we have the Boys to Mentors Fellowship Banquet, which is an event that's actually my baby. It's a Lowcountry Youth Services endeavor, an event that I created to highlight youth development organizations in the Lowcountry, because I do understand the fact that there are so many mentoring programs that people don't know anything about. So my goal was in January, which is National Mentoring Month, was to bring those organizations together for a night of food, fellowship, and fun, where we have a panel discussion about a lot of the things that me and you talked about here on this podcast, is the importance of mentorship, the pitfalls of mentorship, and how people can get involved in mentorship, both on the side of as members and as mentors. I think there cannot be too many events about that. So that's January 18th, 2020 at Hanahan High School. There's other stuff, but if you want more information, you can go to our website, www.lowcountryyouthservices.org, or you can go to my website, just Google Real Talk with Rezsaun, and you'll really find everything about me on there. So that's pretty easy to find.
We'll add links to everything you mentioned and all of your social, all your websites.
Thanks.
Do you have any parting thoughts? Anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't get around to?
Parting thoughts. I think just staying in the premise of this podcast, these conversations are so important. I want to thank you for bringing me on. I'm very excited about the opportunity to speak about this and to let people know about the importance of speaking to your children directly. Do not leave it to somebody else. Get educated. If there's somebody else if there's an opportunity that you have, like another person that you would like to speak to your kid, be in the room. Take part in it. Don't hand your child over to anybody else, to be their sole provider of information. You want to be a part of that. You want to be one of the experts that they trust when it comes to these topics. Yes, some things are uncomfortable to talk about. Some things are uncomfortable to talk about. Some things are hard. But if they trust you, if you can position yourself as one of the trustworthy adults in their lives, there's nothing your child won't tell you. And I can tell you as somebody whose kids have told them some pretty interesting stuff, that both for my mentees and for my individual children. When you position yourself as that expert who is willing to listen without judgment, but instead with an ear of love and with a hope for understanding them, there's nothing that can't happen in your relationship for the better for you and your child. I want to encourage you all to be the best parent, mentor, youth leader, teacher, whatever it is that you are, whatever you can be the best for your child, be that, because they need you. They need you. So please do that. Mentorship is important. If you don't mentor a child, I would really suggest that you find at least one to take under your wing, especially if you don't have any of your own, because these kids are interesting. It's a very different generation. And I'm excited about the future, but I'm also terrified for the future at the same time. But thank you again for bringing me on, and I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you. I think what you're doing is amazing. Really doing some phenomenal work. And thank you for being here.
Praise God.
We'll see you out there.
Yes, sir.